Hello everyone, I'm Malcolm Schweitzer with Schweitzer Surfboards. This is the Robert August What I Ride series prototype that I'm building for Wood Surfboard Supply. It's got this really cool teardrop concave on it, which I'm stripping right now, and I'll show you real quick. It has a frame that fits into the ribs, and then you just glue the strips onto the frame, then you strip the rest of your board around it. I'm really excited about this. It's going to be a really good board. But a lot of people have asked about the rails and how I do the transition from on top of the rail to the side. Amy has been nice enough to videograph this for me. The problem is, normally your strips are on top of the rails. If you'll show them from the side, you're on the top of the rail. But when you get down to the thinner portion, it has to transition from top of the rail to beside the rail strip. Now, what I do is I actually take a little, make a ramp with a chisel. And before you do this, I've already done this. I've glued up an extra strip next to, you can see from where the transition begins, I've doubled up the strip, because you're actually going to be taking away part of that strip and you need the extra thickness, or else your rails are only going to be a couple of millimeters wide or thick when you're done. And I'm going to probably use this 1/2-inch chisel here. I have a wider chisel and I keep some different sizes. I keep my chisels in a drawer with cork and with a little piece of paper to keep the moisture off, because I live in the tropics. I sharpen my chisels on whetstones, which I thought I'd show you, the Japanese water stones. You got a 220, a 1000, a 4000, and an 8000 grit. And when I sharpen them, I'm not going to do it, but they come with, the Norton stones come with this nice little thing here. And I put them into a jig so that you keep the same angle when you sharpen them. And the key is get them really sharp. If you don't have the money for whetstones like this, Google Scary Sharp and use that method. It's where they use wet sandpaper. But what I'm going to do this transition is I'm going to put the strip where it's going to be. Sometimes you might need a clamp, but just resting against it like this works right now. And now this strip is going to slowly transition from top of the strip to beside, and it's going to end up beside the strip right here, the original strip. Remember, I glued this extra piece to give it more thickness, but I'm going to end up right here. So simply scribe a line where your transition finishes up. One thing that I did, sometimes you may have to chisel a little bit away so that this fits nice up against here. You might have to make a little notch in this with a chisel. This butts up pretty good. There's a little bit of just a little sticking out. I'm just going to just take, it's the tiniest little piece. But what you're going to do now, where I scribed that line, I'm slowly going to start a transition from the top, make a ramp until it's side by side. So I'm just going to take my chisel and I will scribe, actually we'll start on this end. You'll start on the deepest end and work your way backwards. And this being balsa, it's going to go really quick. You notice I'm using balsa and Peruvian walnut. The walnut is going to be a little harder, but if you've got a good sharp chisel, it's still going to cut really easily. But the balsa goes real quick. So I want to finish side by side, so I'm just going to start by taking it all the way down on this rail, and then I'm going to work up this line to make that more gradual. And what I'm doing is building a little ramp for the strip to transition. And because I got to go at an angle, I hold it with the bevel down so I can hold the chisel at an angle up from it. And now I'm going to go from back here. And you know, being silly, I failed. I was in a hurry. I didn't think to tell you. I really should have scribed this line with a razor blade, and that's what you're going to have to do for the walnut. For this balsa wood, it's so easy to work with. I can even scribe it with this, but really you want to use a razor blade. Sorry, my bad. That way when you peel it off, it's not going to tear on the edges, because eventually you're going to butt up against that edge. And we're just going to work our way down until I'm even on this end. Now, I'll tidy that up, but just to keep the video short here. Now what you have is you're transitioning from on top of the rail to beside the rail, and because I didn't cut it with the I didn't scribe that line first, I got a little tear out, and that was my bad. But we're gonna keep going, because seeing me do it wrong sometimes is good too, as show you what not to do, right? So now we're just gonna adjust that down a little bit more, and until it's basically, I want this strip to rest level with this rib. So now we've got a transition from the top of the rail to side by side, and as you see, I've got a little tear out there, and that was my bad. I should have scored this line first, but you see what I'm saying. Now notice the reason that we did this side strip is because when you go to shape this strip now, you're going to take off all this edge, and if you didn't have a strip up under here where the overlap happened, you would have a really thin piece. So that's why for each one of these you double up your strips, and then you're going to glue this piece to the bottom and to the side. Like I said, that's tear out that shouldn't have happened, but basically that's how you do it. And when you glue this all up and you sand it and shape it, what's going to happen is you're going to shape this away. It's going to go down to a point, which we're going to go outside real quick and show you on another board what it looks like in the finished product. Can we do that quick? Not a bad place to work on things. This is the Malco stand-up paddleboard. I did the rails the exact same way. And now you see you get a nice smooth transition. You get an even thickness on the rail, and you get the same look to it. But if you look on the side, what's going to happen is it's naturally, when you shape it, you're going to get a nice gradual point where it goes from thick to thin, and you get a good transition. It's pleasing to the eye, and your transition is going to happen on the edge, and from either side you're going to see nice even rail strips. So that's how I do the rails on these hollow rail surfboards where they taper in the tail. Thanks.